Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to work with audio inside of Avid Media Composer. I know for a lot of video people, they're sometimes worried or nervous about messing with audio because it seems like a different world that they're used to. People are used to working in editing and video, but they leave the audio work or the audio sweetening to somebody like an audio engineer who will do that work for you. But it's really a good thing for video people to understand how audio works, particularly in Avid. It can be daunting at times, but we're going to go through it really simply and kind of make sense of it here. So I have this sequence that contains some interview clips and some live sound here. If you remember this, we have this clip of Fidel and live sound here, all come at different levels here. Well, one of the things we want to talk about is we want to talk about levels. I've imported this music here. I have this sizzle music here that is this kind of cool, funky music. Cool, I like this. I like what this does. It works for me. Cool, and I have this here. When music comes in, if you get music off the internet or you download music from some download site or you have it on, I don't know, God forbid, CD or something, you have music that you've acquired through some source, the music will tend to come in loud. It tends to come in louder, usually louder than the cameras. And there's kind of a reason for that. There's kind of a reason of the idea of that. So let's talk about how level works in both an analog environment and both a digital environment. So down here over in the corner, you will see a little level meter. There is a little level meter that will show you what the audio is doing and how the audio is coming through. And so here, when you play a clip in the sequence, it will show what the level meter does. This level meter is okay. It shows a little bit of what's going on here, but I really like, there's a tool up here called the audio tool. And if you go to Tools, Audio Tool, the shortcut is Command 1, you can open up this thing called the audio tool. And here's a little audio tool. We'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see this a little bit bigger here. And you have this control here called the audio tool. Now the audio tool looks this way. And this is kind of a, you can kind of, plant this somewhere if you wanted to. Plant it right here, and you could see the audio levels coming through the mixer or through the sequence, and now you see proper audio levels coming through. Well, let's look at this level here, and I want to talk about this. On the one side, it says volume units scale, and it goes from plus 20, up here it goes to plus 20, and then it goes down to negative 70. And over here, it says digital scale, and on digital scale, it says negative 20, and then it goes up to 0. Let's talk about this as an idea. Back long ago, back when analog mixers and analog audio recording and analog devices, VCRs, etc., they used to have a volume unit meter, a VU meter that looked something like this. And the volume unit meter would show up, and they'd have a level that went from maybe minus 20 up to plus 3, plus 5, and they'd have this sweet spot, this spot at what's called 0 VU, or what's called unity gain. And this little needle would show the levels going through, and the levels wanted to go to 0. And for perfect level, not too much, not too little, kind of the Goldilocks of level, you'd have a perfect level falling at 0. Now, if it was a human voices are dynamic, so they get louder and quieter, and they get different levels. You'd want to kind of bounce between negative 3 and plus 3. And so you'd want to kind of be in this range. And I often consider this kind of be your speed limit. If you're on the highway, the speed limit is 65 miles per hour in the U.S., and so if you're on the highway, you want to be kind of around here. Now, do people sometimes go up to 70 miles an hour? Yeah, sometimes they go to 70 and they get away with it and they don't get pulled over. Sometimes they go lower and they go down to 50 if they're, on a steep hill or something like that, or on a windy road. But they want to be kind of around 65. So it says speed limit, but let's be honest, in today's culture, people kind of break the law a little bit and go a little bit faster, a little bit slower, and they kind of, don't go to that limit. They go a little bit above that limit. Where I live in New Jersey, if you tell somebody the speed limit's 75 miles an hour, they're going to go 80. If you tell them it's 85, they're going to go 90. People are always doing a little bit more. It's kind of the way people are. And so they had this level here. And this area over here, this red, was supposed to be this little bit of headroom, this little bit of space above that said, hey, you can kind of go into here and you'll be okay. Maybe if you hit plus 3, you'll get a little bit of distortion or you get a little bit of roughness there. If you go to here, if you peek out and this little light goes on, this light would say, hey, too bad, you've overloaded your level and you've gone way past there. And this was kind of an established rule that we had there where you could kind of stay around this level here. You could stay around 0, but you could go a little bit above and you would kind of be okay. There was kind of an understanding that you'd be kind of all right that way. Well, when digital came along, digital said, hey, we keep inventing this fake headroom, this idea that you can't go above 0. And why are we doing that? So digital manufacturers started to say, hey, let's forget about this. Let's just say that 0 is over here. And don't go above this. Don't go above this point right here. You know, make your levels right here. So if you ever looked at like a video camera here, you'd see levels here on a video camera that would show levels that said, hey, we're going to go from -40 up to 0. And what's above 0? Well, nothing. 0 is our maximum. Why are we creating this? You know, if you can go to up here, if you can go to past 0 up to +3, then why is this 0? Why don't we just tell people, why don't you just level with people and tell them, no, you can go to up here. You can go all the way here, just don't go above this. Don't go above this and you're fine. So this is now our new 0. This is the maximum we can go. And so 0 stopped being kind of a safe haven of where you could go to. It ended up being the maximum of where you go to. And this is how, you know, digital designers and digital audio manufacturers just agreed and said, hey, you can go up to 0. And now this was weird for a lot of audio engineers because audio engineers were used to going above 0 a little bit. You know, they wanted to cheat a little bit. They wanted to break the rules just a little bit. And they wanted to go above 0. So now they could go above 0 and they said, hey, well, what's above 0? And, you know, digital programmers said, hey, don't go above 0. And they said, well, what if we go a little bit above 0? Nope. Can't go above 0. It's going to max out. It's going to peak at 0. Here's where your peak is. Here's where the maximum, you know, this is the maximum you can go. If you go above this, there's nothing. There's straight distortion above this. This is your ceiling. And so, sorry, we're not playing this game of having this fake level, this fake area of where you could go to, where you should go to, but not go above. We're not going to create this fake area here. We're going to create a maximum and say, too bad, that's your maximum. And so audio engineers ran into a sticky situation. They couldn't go above 0, and they really wanted to go above 0. So they compromised, and they said, well, how about this? How about we say that our new 0, our new imaginary 0, is -12. Or in some situations, it's -14. On some devices, it's -20. We're going to create a fake threshold. So imagine if, and this is a weird analogy, but imagine if that you had a problem that you kept speeding on the highway, and you knew that the next time you got caught speeding, you were going to lose your license, and you really didn't want to lose your license. So you said to yourself, you know what? Every time it says 65 miles on the highway, I'm going to tell myself that it says 50. I'm just going to count off 15 miles per hour and say, every time it says 65, I'll just tell myself, really it's 50. That way, when I'm going 50, I'll see the 65 and I'll see that it says 65 and I'll say, oh, that must mean 50. And then cool, then I'll go 50. And then if I go 55, you know what, I'll break the rules a little bit. And I'll break the rules a little. I'll break my rule a little bit, and I'll speed a little bit in my head, and that'll make me feel good. That'll make me feel like I'm in the Fast and Furious or something. But really, I'm still going under the speed limit. So they created this kind of fake threshold. They said, oh, some camera manufacturers, this is the Canon interface here. Canon said, hey, we're going to set a little light here at -12. It says, hey, don't go above -12. That's your new 0. That's your new analog 0. Don't go above this. And so you'll see some devices and some audio recorders and some things will put a little notch somewhere that says, hey, don't go above -14, don't go above -18. Or sometimes they have colors that go from green to yellow to red. And they say, hey, stay in the green, don't go above the green. You know, you can be right at the threshold of the green and the yellow, just kind of right between those two and be there. So that's how certain circumstances of video cameras work nowadays to record good level. And if you broadcast, if you publish something on YouTube or on Amazon or on Netflix or whatever it may be, even on Spotify, they will have a level that they say, hey, don't go above this loudness unit. Don't go above -12. Don't go above -14. We're gonna set everything at -14, -18, something like there. Well, Avid comes along and Avid says, inside of Avid, let's go back to Avid here, and they say our level here is 0 in a typical analog volume unit scale is really -20. Now, I think 0 at -20 is really too low. And that's okay. So they have this here at -20. So if you listen to Fidel here, and we play Fidel back,
it's really geared toward,
he's coming up a little bit loud.
male students.
But again, I know I shot this with a Canon camera, and my Canon camera was at -12, -14. So let's set this to be -12, -14. So what we're going to do is we're going to look here and see in here. Up here at the top here, there's something up here called the PH menu, what's called the peak hold menu. And this is the audio tool. This is kind of the settings for the audio tool itself. And so this is a quick little trick here. If you go to the peak hold menu and you go up to here, they'll say set reference level. Here, and set reference level, you can set your reference level. And right now your reference level in decibels is -20. And -20 is 0. So we don't want that. Personally, I don't want that. If you like that, if that works for you, that's the default in Avid. I'm going to set my levels at -14. And we're going to say here, 0 is -14. You're going to see that this display will change. Now 0 is now -14. And so these are equivalent here. So we want our levels set to -14. So all of our levels coming in are going to come in at -14, which means we have to do a little bit of work here. So let's look at Fidel and let's look at how Fidel sounds here. So we look at Fidel on these tracks here, and we have this display.
Initiative is going to be a conference that is really geared toward exposing minority male students.
Now, he's maintaining pretty well at -14. He's holding at -14 pretty well. When he says exposing, he gets a little bit loud.
Be a conference that is really geared toward exposing minority.
He goes up to like -8 or -6 there. He's okay, but he's all right.
Really geared toward.
At least he's not going anywhere near 0. He's staying away from that ceiling, right? That ceiling up there is saying, nope, don't mess with that. Don't go anywhere near that.
Exposing minority.
Again, if we wanted to tweak every single word, we could tweak every single word so that every word was coming at the exact same level. We don't want to go crazy. Human beings are human beings. They have dynamic voices. They get louder, they get quieter, they change. It's okay. It's forgivable.
It's really geared toward exposing my.
We want them to hold there. Now, here's a problem I have, though, with Fidel. I noticed that when Fidel was recorded, there was a lavalier microphone on Fidel. Fidel had a lavalier microphone on him. There was also a lavalier microphone on me interviewing him. If we go to the original source video of Fidel, you'll hear me over here. Tell me, Fidel, about the minority. And this is coming in on the lavalier microphone here, and he's coming there. So I had a microphone on me, there was a microphone on Fidel, etc. Well, we see that Fidel came in with two channels. He had this channel right here, which is the track 1, channel 1, and he had this channel right here called channel 2. And you'll notice that a significant difference between them in terms of the waveform here. The waveform is showing me some significant different levels between these two. So let's talk about it. Well, let's look at this one by itself. Let's solo this one. And we're going to go here to track 2 and hit the S key and solo this track. So now that's going to mute every other track on here, and we're going to just listen to this track on the timeline. Well, in terms of Fidel, that doesn't sound like anything worthwhile. If you listen, if I solo the source on track 2, you can hear me. What is it going to be? That's me. And what the expectation is. And no Fidel. So here on the timeline, since this is only Fidel, we don't really need track 2. We don't really need to have track 2 as an available track. Track 2 is just my recording of my voice. Is it picking up Fidel? Yeah, but it's picking up Fidel with a lot of reverb, a lot of, room noise. It's not worthwhile. So now what do? We can say, okay, let's keep this track, let's get rid of this track. What do we want to do? Well, we could go into here, and if we click on this, it's going to click on everything, which we don't want to do. So we're going to hold in the Option key and click on this, and we can click on just the audio and just grab just one, or we could turn the track select off and just grab the audio here and just say, hey, let's delete this track. Now we clicked on the red guy, so in the red guy, when we click the red guy, it's going to say, boom, let's grab this, just this, and we'll delete this, and we can get rid of it. Whoops, let me hit delete again, and delete it and get rid of it. And so we'll delete it and get rid of it. We could do that. That's the thing we could do, we get rid of it. But let's just undo that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get rid of the track because I like knowing that it's there. Sometimes you just like visually knowing that there is another track there just because it makes your world seem happier. So again, we could delete it entirely, but let's not delete it entirely. Let's leave it alone. So let's look at what we can do here. So here, let's turn the solo off and let's listen. So now we have these two tracks. And this track, just to show you, this one's soloed.
Be a conference that is really geared toward exposing.
Is Fidel relatively clean? So all that's really adding, all this other track 2 is really adding is just my microphone picking them up at a distance, which is adding a lot of room noise. So it's not really necessary in this case. So let's talk about controlling audio. And the way we're going to control audio is we're going to do this in the track control panel. The easiest way to do this, we'll show you advanced ways to do this, but the easiest way to do this is in the track control panel. And the track control panel, I don't love where it is located. There's a button right here, and you're going to forget what this button is. I used to forget all the time. Over here is the time code, and it shows you the time code on the track, and then next to it is this little triangle right here. I wish this triangle was somewhere down here or somewhere at the bottom of this that would be more indicative of where this was located, but it's not. I'm sorry, that's the best I can tell you. But we're going to go here and open up this triangle. It's going to open up this thing called the track control panel. And this is the track control panel. This is amazing. Okay, so we have the track control panel here, which gives us some controls. First of all, we have the ability to turn on and turn off the waveforms. If we don't want to see the waveforms, we want to see the waveforms, we can turn on the waveforms per track, these little buttons right here, turn off the waveforms or turn on the waveforms. There, no, sorry, I hit a button. Cancel. Not now. Cool. And so here we have the waveforms, ability to turn the waveforms. But then we have this pull down menu, and this pull down menu will show us a couple different controls. The first of which is a control to show us this thing here called clip gain. So this pull down menu opens up and it shows us none, clip gain, volume, and pan. Let's talk about clip gain first. So we're going to hit clip gain on this track, and we're going to go here to clip gain on this track. And so we're going to have clip gain on this track and clip gain on this track, and we have these two things. Now, what you see here in the display is you see these little controls, and you see that this is +5. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason why this is +5. So here, when this was brought in, when this clip fidel was brought into the timeline, this audio on track 1 was boosted up 5 decibels. When this track was brought in, it wasn't boosted up at all, so it's not showing in a display. Now, this is something that we did initially. So if you want to, and this is something you can do if you're an editor, something we probably should have done as an editor, is if you're an editor, you can go in here and say, great, I want to adjust my audio so that these are coming in at good level. And so I want to maintain that these are coming in at relatively good level. So what is good level going to be? Well, good level is going to be your level sitting at this coming here at -14. So don't get this number confused with this number here. We want to see whatever the level was that was recorded at, and we want to adjust it accordingly. Well, okay, let's take a look here. We said, for example, Fidel here at +5 here, he was at +5, is coming in pretty well.
Is going to be a conference that is really geared toward exposing minority male students.
He was boosted to +5, and so he's coming through pretty well. This audio, we don't really need this audio, so we can go to this little flyaway fader, and this little flyaway fader allows us to control this and grab here and bring this down to -0. Now it's at -infinity now. -infinity means, guess what? It's pretty much silent. So this, if we played this one, if we soloed this one right here, nothing, completely silent here. And this one's at +5. If +5 is too much, we can go here and grab this and say, let's grab this. It brings up this flyaway fader. So we click on this little cross here. Looks like a little symbol of a fader there. Little fader symbol. We're going to grab this and bring this down to +3. Now it's only at +3. You'll often see, if you turn the waveform, you'll see this little black line right here. And this little black line shows you what the level is doing. So here.
So the Minority Male Initiative is going to be a conference that is really geared toward.
If we wanted this at -20 where it was before, we could say, let's leave this at 0. And now it's coming closer to -20. Maybe even lower. Maybe we could drop this down to -2, and now -2.
Is going to be a conference that is really geared toward exposing.
And that'd be there. But we like this +4, +5. There, we're going to drag this back up and go here, click on this, and drag this back up to +4. There we go, and we're going to +4, and now we're here at levels +4. And again, track 1 is coming in at +4, so the one that was on Fidel is at +4. I think +5 is even okay. So we're going to click here. We can actually click here and type in 5. Now it's at +5, and so now I think this is good.
That is really geared toward exposing minority male students to.
Again, the word exposing gets a little bit loud, but that's okay. We have it here. Now, the audio clip gain is basically the volume for the clip. And so if we bring in another interview, say for example we brought in another interview here, we went to interviews and we brought in an interview here of someone else, say we brought in Kevin, for example, and we're going to take Kevin here and look at Kevin's level. So we're going to play Kevin here. What you got to see and experience?
So far it's been really good. I went into the business.
So let's pick up Kevin here.
I went into the business room, so we just talked about life and how you need to set your goals and be motivated to do what you want to do. And
all right, we're just going to take that, and we're going to add that into the timeline. So we're going to go here to the end of this. We're going to mark an endpoint. We'll have this in track 1 and audio 1 and audio 2. Now, before we do this, a thing we can do, we can start to look at what's going on before we bring this into the timeline. So let's go here and let's look at this. Now, right here, we can't really see the audio controls here. So there's no audio controls here. So we're going to bring up something called the audio mixer. And the tools, audio mixer, and we're going to bring up the audio mixer. And by bringing up the audio mixer, here's the audio mixer. It floats like this, and we're just going to put this right here. We can dock this somewhere in here. We're going to put this right there. And so now we have the meters, we have the audio mixer, we have all these controls. We'll just put this like there. Okay, let me show you some ideas about the audio mixer. When I click on the timeline, it shows me the audio mix of the timeline. When I click up here on the source clip, it shows me the source clip. Here's faders for the source clip, faders for the timeline, faders for the source clip, faders for the timeline. Let's go back to the source clip, and I want to show you how this looks. So right now when we play this clip of Kevin,
Went into the business room, so we just talked about.
okay, there's two different audio sources here. And if we look here at these two different audio sources, we can say, let's solo this. And this audio source, we can solo it here, or we can solo it here. We can look at this and say, great, this level,
Business room, so we just talked about life and how you need to set your.
that sounds pretty clean. That's actually pretty clean. Let's take a listen to this one. Now, this was a handheld microphone. And so with this handheld microphone here, well, that was plugged into input 1. On input 2 was the on-camera mic. And the on-camera mic was just recording the sound of the room, basically, which sounds really reverby, sounds really roomy.
I went into the business room, so we just talked about life and how you need to set your goals and.
I don't like that audio at all. So let's, before we bring this into the timeline, before we decide that we're going to bring this in the timeline, we're going to take this and dump this down to negative infinity, down all the way here, because we don't want this sound here. Even if this exists, even if the track exists, it's just not going to play anything here. And let's listen to this again. Let's look at what the levels are doing here.
This room, so.
All right, this is relatively low, so let's boost him up. Let's boost him up to +1, +3, +4. Let's try +4.
Room, so we just talked about life and how you need to set your goals and be motivated to do what you want to do.
And maybe we can go to +5. We're not going to go crazy. We're not going to go +12 or anything. Maybe we'll go to +4, +5. That's good enough for me.
Room, so we just talked about life and how you need to set your goals and be motivated.
And again, what I want is consistent volume. Now, here's the thing. I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to put this down here. At this point here, we're going to add this in. We're going to splice this in here and put this down in track 2. It's going to put both audio tracks down. If I didn't want the other audio track, I said, hey, it's not useful. I could just put the one down, but we're going to put them both down, put the audio tracks down, and add this in. And now we have Kevin here. And Kevin is coming in at +5, negative infinity. This is how he's recorded.
It'll be an NJCU student.
I went into the business.
We can get rid of this effect here if we can click on this and just delete this effect here because we're going to.
NJCU student.
I went into the business.
So this is fine. His audio is good. Now, here's the trick. If I went through the trouble and adjusted everyone's audio before I brought them into the timeline, their audio would be fine in the timeline. If I took the liberty to do that. If I said, hey, let's go through all these interview clips and make sure all the audio is fine before I put it in the timeline, that would make my world a whole lot easier. But that doesn't always happen because sometimes you're anxious to edit and you start throwing clips in the timeline and then you're like, a day later, you think to yourself, oh man, I should have adjusted the audio ahead of time. And you didn't. And so, too bad, now you have to go through the timeline and adjust them accordingly. So for example, this clip right here, I didn't adjust the audio of this level. Now this is the live on-camera audio. There was no microphone connected to the camera for him, so this is the live on-camera audio. Let's see how this sounds.
He excelled in math and science, graduated at the...
All right, so he's coming out here at like -6. And compared to Fidel, he's a lot louder than Fidel. And I don't want that. I don't want the volume to constantly change in between every single clip. I want consistency. And so here...
And giving them information about careers that they might be interested in.
Pete went on...
Much louder. So now I can either go to the flyaway faders here, or if I'm parked here, I can go up to here and pull these down. So let's pull this one down -4. And I should also, since this is in stereo, I should also pull this one down to -4. And we'll bring this down to -4. And now we'll play this.
In math and science, graduated at the top of his class from a public high school in Central Jersey, and then went on to college.
And so he's pretty good there. He's coming in. He's pretty good. He's pretty solid. The audio is clean. It's all right there. Let's listen to Wayne. Now Wayne looks like we made some adjustments to Wayne. Now Wayne here is now when I park in Wayne, you see when I parked in Wayne, I'm at +3 on the main channel. On the other channel, I'm at -11, which is weird. Let's hear how this sounds. It's kind of in the distance. Now, I could say, hypothetically, hey, I want this to be at +3, and I want this to be at -11. Why do I want this to be -11? Because I do, for some reason, I do like some of that room noise. If this was not this situation, but I've done situations where I've done a live concert before. And the live concert, I've had the clean sound coming from the mics on the stage. I've got a board feed or a board recording that I'm picking up the live sound. But I sometimes want to sneak in a little bit of live sound, just a little bit of environmental sound. or if I'm doing something like in previous lessons we did the goat yoga. If I want the sound of the microphone there clean, I can have the microphone clean, but I can also have the sound of the goats in there and adjust that level accordingly. So I can adjust some controls there. But in this case, I'm going to say I want to dump this down to minus infinity and get rid of this here, and that gets rid of this there to minus infinity. But notice that Wayne was cut up a lot. And again, as I said before, if I had gone through the trouble of adjusting Wayne's level to what I wanted, and I was sure of what I wanted before, I wouldn't have to do this now. But now I have to go to each of these segments and adjust them accordingly. So now I'd have to go to this one, and let's take a look at this one. Let's play this here. Oh, sorry, we're still soloed on this one, so let's not solo ourselves in this one.
And when there's an opportunity to participate in an event like this, to bring these young men.
All right, so he's a little loud here, so let's move him from +3 to +2.5 here, just a little bit lower. Just a little bit lower here, he's going to be +2.5.
To participate in an event like this, to bring these young men together.
So his level's looking pretty good there at 2.5, but at this segment, so you can see, even if I took this one and made this one 0, I can hold in the Option key. This is a trick. This is a Pro Tools trick. Holding the Option key and hit this, and it would mark this back to 0. So now this one's at 0. There's no change here.
Opportunity to participate in.
You'll see when it gets to the next segment, it'll be louder. And why will it be louder? Because each segment on the timeline has its own volume.
In an event like this, to bring these young men.
That became louder. So you hear the difference between here.
Opportunity to participate in an event like this, to bring these young men together.
And so this gets louder because each of these cuts, each place where it's cut on the timeline is a different volume. And so that's the nature. Again, if I had brought this down, it would be what it is by default. So again, we're going to set this one to to 2.5 here, and this one at negative infinity. Now, I want to go through and I want to make all of these Wayne clips 2.5 and infinity. So I have to go to this one, park on this one, move this one at 2.5, and then I have to bring this one down to negative infinity and drag this all the way down. And then I have to go to this one here and make this 2.5, and then drag this down and make this negative infinity. And it's a pain in the butt. It really is. It's a pain in the butt. So let me undo that, and let's go back here. So we're going to move this one here. We're going to set this one here to, hold on one second. We're going to set this one here to back to this. So this is 2.5 and infinity. This one was at, we'll set this one back to 3 where it was. And I want to make all the other Waynes like this one. So I'll show you a trick here. In the mixer, in the audio mixer, there is a fast menu, a little hamburger up in the corner, a little fast menu here. And the fast menu has some controls that you can choose. So we are parked on this one. And there's a control here that says set level on track globally. Now, if I did set level on track globally, that's going to set everything on all these tracks. Any track that's enabled here, A1, A2, any of these tracks are enabled, it's going to set the level globally to be +2.5 and minus infinity on any tracks that I have on. And that's going to be set level on track globally. Well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to set everything. I want to set it within a range. So this is my best option. If I click here on this part of Wayne here, and I click somewhere here, and I mark an endpoint, hit the I key, mark an endpoint, and then I go to the end of Wayne, over to here, just as long as I grab this clip, this clip, this clip, and this clip, just somewhere in this range, and I park on this one, I'm going to set this one at +2.5 and this one at negative infinity, even though these ones are not, but this is at +2.5 minus infinity, and there. You'll notice that now the fast menu doesn't say set level on track globally, it says set level on track in to out. And that's going to be, take the one that I'm parked on, 2.5 and a negative infinity, and set the other ones that are on there to that same one that I'm parked on, between the in and out points, and then all those Waynes become 2.5 and infinity. That's exactly what I want. I'll hit the G key to remove my in and out points.
And when there's an opportunity to participate in an event like this, to bring these young men together for the purposes of encouraging them in their education that they're in and continuing them to get a college degree, is exciting for us as an organization.
So this is what I wanted. This is clean. This is appropriately what I wanted. There was some B-roll over here that I somehow got rid of, but we'll put some B-roll back over there so we don't have to jump cut. But, this is the edit that we're doing, and we're worried about audio right now. Again, we can look at Aaron and see how Aaron is.
For NJCU, actually, we have a partnership.
You hear that background noise of that other microphone. So again, we can pull it down here and drag it down to nothing. And so now we don't have the background noise.
For NJCU, actually, we have a partnership.
Or lot less. But let's take Aaron, let's boost him up a little bit. We'll boost him up to +3.
For NJCU, actually, we have a partnership with Brook.
Again, he's much cleaner there. He's coming off that microphone. We're going to adjust everyone's level accordingly so that when you're sitting home and you're watching this on TV, you don't have to keep adjusting the volume on your remote control because you can't hear something and then it's too loud and then it's too quiet. We want all the volume to be consistent, right? We want it all to be the same exact level coming through across the board.
High school in Central Jersey.
All right, so all this level is set. Now let's talk about adding in some music into this project. Let's talk about, we had this sizzle music here. In this music folder, we had this sizzle music. So let's take a look at this sizzle music and let's bring this in. So let's go back to the beginning here. We'll go back to the beginning and just mark an endpoint here. And we're just going to put the sizzle music here on track number 3. So I'm going to drag this down to track 3 and patch this down to track 3. So it was on A1. We're going to patch it down to track 3. And I'm just going to, on the timeline, mark an endpoint at the beginning, mark an out point at the end. And I don't want audio 2 and I don't want video 1. I just want to put this music down here. Now this is only a mono file, so we'll notice the sizzle music is a mono file. Now before I put the sizzle music, let's be smart about this. Let's look what the sizzle music is doing. Here's the thing. I said before, when working with stuff that you grab off the camera, if you shot it with your camera, cameras are very considerate to you and say, hey, let's set our levels at -12. You know, a good camera person, a good videographer will say, hey, let's set it at -12, let's set it at -14, you know, maybe even let's set it at -20. They're cool about that. If you get contemporary music, pop music off the radio, you know, Billboard Hot 100 music, typical music you would listen to regularly. Here's the thing about music. A lot of music producers, a lot of music engineers will try to make their thing as loud as possible. There's a whole culture of making your music the loudest thing on the radio. So if you get pop music off the radio, stuff that typically plays on Spotify or whatever it may be, it'll come really close to 0. Now this is kind of instrumental music. This was kind of royalty-free instrumental music, and this isn't going all the way to 0, but if you get, you know, your typical, you know, top 40 song, it's going to go right all the way to this top 0. It's going to get as close as it wants because that thing, that, you know, that rock artist or that pop music artist wants to be the loudest thing on the radio. So my advice is if you get music like this, man, just before you even bring in the timeline, let's just dump it down. Let's just dump this down to -12, -14, something like that. We'll go to -11. All right, that's much better. That's much better. Typically, if it's radio music, you know, top 40 music, just dump it down -14. Just dump it down to whatever your level is because it's going to become as close to 0 as possible. So we'll dump this down here like so, and we're going to add this in here. And so here, we're going to say overwrite this down in track 3, and boom, this music goes in here. So it's going in the beginning of this.
So the Minority Male Initiative is going.
And it ends right before Fidel, or ends right in the beginning of Fidel. But it cuts off a little bit of Fidel here. We have a little bit of cut off of Fidel.
So the Minority Male.
And it cuts off a little bit drastically. So now we're going to talk about another control here. Another control that we have is not the clip gain. Avid actually has 2 different volume controls. And this is a little weird, but this is just the way that Avid thinks. And I'll try to make the best I can to make sense of it. So we have the clip gain, and then beneath the clip gain, we have the volume. Think of clip gain as the overall overarching level for the clip, right? It deals with the clip as a segment. So the segment, we can adjust the clip gain. And if you just want to adjust clip gain and never worry about volume, don't worry about volume. But now we want to go here and we want to adjust volume. And volume is the kind of the internal volume within the clip. We want to adjust that. And we want to do this on track 3. So I'm going to go to track 3 and not look at clip gain. I'm going to look at track 3 and look at volume. And if I look at volume, we're going to zoom in a little bit. Let's just zoom in here. And we'll make this track a little bit bigger. Go down here to this here. And we'll just make this track a little bit bigger. We actually hit Command L and make this track a little bit larger, just so we can see this a little bit bigger. And make this track a little bit larger that we can work with. There we go. We can also hold down Command, Option, and then drag right here and make this bigger as well. So let's take a look. Okay, so this, if you look really closely, you'll actually see some numbers here. Little invisible numbers here, kind of grayed out numbers here. And this is your ability to adjust the volume within the clip, or adjust the volume according to the clip. So for example, if we go to here, and we said on the video track we had a dissolve here, right? We had some kind of dissolve. We can add a dissolve in here and say, let's add a 24 frame dissolve, or a 24 frame fade from color. We can add that in there, and so we have a little fade up here. We could even take this music and move this music back and just move it back to here, and then extend it a little bit longer, just have it a little bit longer, just so it goes into Fidel a little bit. And so we'll go here. Now, we want this music to fade up. Now, we could add an audio dissolve in here. We could click on this, and if we have the audio track on, we could click and park, and we could add an audio dissolve on the track, but we don't really necessarily want to do that. What I want to do is I want to do some internal volume adjustments. And the internal volume adjustments I want to do is by adding keyframes. Now, if you ever look at your keyboard shortcuts, and you can see them here, Command-Shift-Equal, here in your user shortcuts in your keyboard shortcuts here, we're on this keyboard, you will see that the quotations mark key, or the asterisk key, the apostrophe key, or quotations mark key, this key has this little pink diamond here, and this is to add keyframes. We've talked previously about adding video keyframes. Let's talk about adding audio keyframes, and we'll park here like so. So let's take a look at this, and let's do some audio keyframe adjustments here inside of Avid. So we're going to hit here, and we're going to hit the quotations key. And the quotations key is going to add a keyframe on any track that is enabled. So if this track is not on, you're not going to get anything except errors. But let's turn this track on, and let's just say right here, we are going to go and hit the quotations key. Boom. And it adds a little triangle right there. A little triangle right there that you can see, a little tiny triangle. We're going to go back to the beginning here with the quotations key again, and you can add another little triangle right there. And now this triangle allows you that when you hover over it, you'll see that it turns into a little hand. And so when you hover over it, you get a little picture of a hand here. Let me zoom in for a second. I'll show you here. You get a little hand right there that's there like so. And so here you can get this little hand, and you can grab and pull this. Let's go here and turn the ability to adjust the trimming off, because it's just getting in the way. And we'll go to here. Once we get this little finger here, we can grab this and pull down. And this creates a little ramp. And this little ramp is what's called volume automation. And volume automation allows us to automate volume changes within the clip. And as we play this, you'll see it'll get louder, and the volume raises up. Now we'll do this again right here at Fidel. We'll say here, we'll add a quotations right here, boom. And right here we'll add another here, quotations key, and we'll just have this volume pull down. And so this is going to be a little ramp here to ramp up and ramp down. Music's going to come up nice and loud.
So the Minority Male Initiative is going.
Now, Avid is a weird thing, and this is always weird to me. Avid is a control that it won't. I want to change the length of this ramp. I want this to fade out a little bit slower.
So the Minority Male Initiative.
It was okay, but I want to fade a little bit slower. If you grab this, I can pull this up or down, but I can't pull this further from the other keyframe. This keyframe and this keyframe, I'd want these keyframes to be able to pull further away from each other, which would be really nicely. It doesn't do that. And I don't know why it doesn't do that, but here's the shortcut. Honestly, Avid wants you to hit a modifier, and I don't know why they want you to modify, but hold in the Option key, and then you can drag the keyframes horizontally. They want to make it that you can only drag it vertically unless you hold in the Option key, and then Option drag these. You can drag these and make them longer or shorter and change the distance between the keyframes, because the distance between keyframes is going to be a slower fade out.
So the Minority Male Initiative is going.
That's just a thing. So now
So the Minority Male Initiative is going.
and the music faded out. Let's just do this one more time, just as an example. We're going to go here, and we're going to go over this section where this live sound comes in. And this live sound is cool.
Heat went on.
You know, this is the nat sound here. Over this section here, we're going to add this music back in. So we're going to grab another section of sizzle. We'll mark an endpoint, and we're just going to put some music here on track 3. Overwrite this down. So I marked an endpoint a little bit before this and a little bit after this, and we're going to put this here, just somewhere in the middle of the music, and we're going to add this music in here, like so. And we can see the waveform here, so we can see that it comes in.
Might be interested in.
Heat went on.
And again, this music is still here. If we look at the clip gain is still at -11. Why is it still at -11? Because up here we set it at -11 before we even brought it into the timeline. And this is the thing I was talking about before, the idea of setting it before you even bring in the timeline. Once in the timeline, adjusting it up here isn't going to do anything down the timeline. This is, once it goes down here, it's already set here. So here, again, I'm going to turn off the waveform so you can see, and we'll go away from clip gain. We'll turn clip gain off, and we'll turn volume on, and now we have volume controls. So I'm going to zoom in really close so you can see what's going on here. I'm just going to go right here, and I'm going to mark a keyframe. I'm going to go right here and mark a keyframe. But let's undo for a second because I want to show you something different. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to click and get rid of those keyframes. I'm going to go from up here, and on the audio mixer, you'll see it says clip up here. And up here it says clip. And if we go to clip, we can click on clip and go to something that says auto. Here it says auto. So we're going to flip from clip to auto. Auto allows us to automate to the automation control. So the clip control is for the clip gain. And again, I told you before, Avid has two volumes. It is a clip gain volume and an automation volume, and the volume is there. So we're going to go from clip to auto. And here in auto, we're going to look at not track 1 and not track 2. We're going to look at track 3 here. And in track 3, now what I can do is I can click here, and I can change this and grab this. And when I do that, it makes a keyframe. Now, I don't want to do that at -3. I want to hit Option click and make this back to 0. But now I still have a keyframe here. Now I can go to the beginning of this, and I can just pull this down. It'll make another keyframe and drag my ramp down there.
Heat went on.
I can go to here, click this, Option click, or click this and Option click there. And then you go to the end of this and then say drag this down, and then I have volume adjustments there. And so I can do keyframes that way. If you want to do it by using the apostrophe key or the quotation mark key and doing it that way and dragging them down that way, you can do it there. But if you really like using the fader,
Be interested in.
Heat went on. He excelled.
and now maybe we don't want this music so loud. So maybe we want to click on this one. We'll click on this one. You'll see this will highlight this one in pink. We'll hold in the shift key and click on this. Now we grabbed both of these, and now we can bring this down a little bit to here. So this is bringing this down. It'll actually say, you'll see in this little display right here, it's hard to see, but down here in the bottom of the timeline, you'll see when I pull these down, how much it's pulling it down. I just pulled this down to -7. Now, theoretically, it's -7 volume, -11 on the clip level. So that's -7, -11, that's -18. I don't know, you can do the math, you can work it out. It's not really important, just whatever sounds right to you. So we want to be able to hear this kind of as a music bed underneath.
Careers that they might be interested in.
Heat went on. He excelled.
So we didn't want this full volume. We wanted this to be, we didn't want this like here in the beginning because there's nothing going on in the beginning. I like the music coming up to -14. We just wanted this to be kind of a little bit,
Interested in.
Heat went on. He excelled.
a little bit in the background.
Science, graduated at the top of
We like that as an idea.
high school in Central Jersey.
So we have that control there to do that. Again, if you want to do this with dissolves, you could do this with audio dissolves or audio crossfades, but this ability to control internally there. Now again, before we talked about this idea that with Fidel, he says,
Geared toward exposing my
if we wanted to, we could go to Fidel right here, and we could say, let's go to Fidel. Let's turn on here the volume control in Fidel. We'll turn on the clip gain control, and we're just going to go right here, and we're going to turn on A1, because if we don't turn on A1, we won't see it. And we could go here, and we could add a keyframe here, maybe a keyframe here, and a keyframe here, and we could take this and just drop down where he says exposing, maybe 6 decibels. And so right here, he's going to say exposing not so loud.
toward exposing minority male
And he didn't really pop there when he said exposing.
toward exposing minority male
If you want to do that, if somebody got really awkwardly loud, at some point inside the clip, you could do that with the source audio clip. You could do that with a regular interview clip. You could do it with music. You could actually cut him out and, make it sound like he said something, naughty or something. You could censor him.
that is really geared toward exposing minority
You could cut out audio. You'd probably make another keyframe here, again, quotations key, and have a really big, cutout. We'll just Option click. And now we have really just kind of,
toward exposing minority male
you really censored him out because he said something inappropriate or something, and you wanted to, keep this G-rated.
exposing minority male students. A conference that is really geared toward
Now, if you don't want that, you can click on these keyframes, and you can delete these keyframes if you want to. I'll show you another trick, by the way. If you want to, you can mark an in point at the beginning, an out point around the area, and if you click on one keyframe, it'll highlight all of them. So that's a nice way to highlight all the keyframes, and we can highlight all the keyframes, and then delete them all, and then clean this up. Now, just as one other thing in this, in terms of volume controls, if you really want to, we're going to go to here, and we'll just say, we'll mark it an out point, and we'll just say, let's just delete all these keyframes. So now this is no more keyframe adjustment, so this is back at 0. If you really wanted to, if you really wanted to go crazy, this is the thing you could do. You could go here, and you could hit this button. Since we're in auto mode, not in clip mode, but since we're in auto mode, you could hit this button, and this is called the record button. And the record button allows us to do this. We can hit record. We're going to hit record, and then we're going to mess with volume fader 3 in automation mode. And so we're going to record automation.
Pete went on.
Music out,
He excelled in math,
music up,
science,
music out,
graduated at the top of
music
his
up,
class
out, up, out, up, out, up, 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 out, 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 up,
and
up.
then went on to college.
And when there's
When we stop, it just recorded all of that automation. Now that was obnoxious, obviously. If we solo this track, just to solo this, you can see that it recorded all that automation. And even the fader here will move. You'll see it. It'll move on its own. I'm not touching anything. And if you look really closely, you can see it just made a couple dozen keyframes here to make all this automation happen. So inside here, here's all these keyframes that equal all this automation. This is a really more tactile way of going. Now I can click on one, it'll highlight all of them because the keyframe, because the in and out points are still there. Hit delete and then goodbye automation. Let's go back to something simpler, something not so crazy. I really didn't need to do all of that nonsense. I just wanted to do that to kind of show you that that could be done as an idea. No, we're going to go here. Again, we'll get rid of the in and out points. We'll hit the track 3, we'll hit the quotations key. And quotations key. Notice it's making quotations on the keyframes in track 1 as well, which I don't necessarily want. Let me undo for a second. Let's turn the track selector off for track 1. Track selectors are always the most important thing. And again, we'll do a little fade out here. We'll bring this back down to -6 or whatever this was, -7. Again, here at the end, quotations key. And this will fade out. So there's going to be a little music interlude while this guy goes to the live event talking. This is soloed, so you can't really hear this, so let's unsolo this.
Interested in.
Pete went on. He excelled in math and science. Graduated at the top of his class from a public high school in Central Jersey, and then went on to college.
and when there's an opportunity to participate.
And there's some things you can do with audio. There's some things you can do with audio to clean up audio. That is some of the basic fundamentals of audio, of how audio works in there. Again, I can't stress enough that there are two different audio controls. There's the clip gain, and it's two different mindsets of ways you're going to work. The clip gain is the overall volume for the clip. The volume automation is that in between the clips. So it's kind of, what is it, interscholastic versus intrascholastic there, or intermural versus intramural. You understand. One's for working with the clip itself. One's working with inside of the clip there, like so, as an idea. Anyway, that's a little bit of audio. Is there more you can do with audio? Yes. There are tons of audio controls here. In the effect palette, there are, you have access to a bunch of clip controls, a bunch of controls to add reverb or add different things. Avid owns Pro Tools, so you have a bunch of Pro Tools controls that you can do to manipulate and mess with Pro Tools. There's a built-in audio EQ that you can manipulate. You can park on a clip and you can say, hey, I want to grab this clip here, audio track 3, and I want to go to Tools, audio EQ, and I want to mess with this simple 3-band audio EQ here. And this simple 3-band audio EQ looks like this. And we can park on this and add some more bass to this. Here, we'll add some more bass at 240 hertz, and we can add some more bass to this. And now this is going to boost the bass. And we'll boost a lot here. Or we could take the bass out of here. We could mess with this. Add more treble. There's an audio EQ here. You could bring in some other plugins. Let me remove that effect. We could bring in some other plugins like something like Digiverb or something, and bring in some reverb on this and add some reverb to this. And bring in the reverb on here. You could bring in something called the audio suite, and that would allow you to open up this thing called the audio suite here. This is the audio suite, and you could open this up, and this gives you full access to the entire Pro Tools sets of controls, including... Let's preview this. Tons of reverb. Tons of large hall reverb. We could tweak the wet and the dry there. It's actually more than I want to get into, so that's kind of fun, but just I want to show you some other things you can do. You do have some resources there, but let's do something more simple. Let's remove this effect. So we're parting this, we're here, we're going to remove that effect here. Close the audio suite here, so you have these basic controls there. I do want to go through here, and on this, we had stereo audio on here, so this, we did have stereo audio on here. So this, not the music, but these tracks right here, this guy talking.
He excelled in math.
he's wandering around the room. He's wandering back and forth. He's wandering past the camera to the left side and the right side. And maybe at some point the left side is picking up more than the right side. What we could do is we could pan this if we wanted to. So we could say, let's take this and pan track 1 all the way to the left and pan right all the way to the Trude all the way to the right. And so now this is panned out.
He excelled in math
And now you're seeing some different levels coming through from 1 or 2 as he moves closer to one mic as opposed to the other mic. We're separating these out. By default, inside of Avid, I think Command-Shift-Equal. If we go to our audio settings, in the audio settings, the default panning for mono tracks, which is what these are, is centered. It used to be alternating left and right, but in the new version of Avid, it is centered, and so it is centered here like so. But if you wanted to have stereophonic capabilities,
excelled in math and science.
you know, you heard helicopters going by or something, or tanks going by, and you want to hear that sound of it drifting from left to right because the microphone was right in the center and it was a stereophonic mic like on the camera.
Graduated at the top of his class from
You could do that. You could have that available to you. So there is pan controls there as well. And so you do have pan controls that you can make those adjustments and move them like so. So there's a bunch of controls you have. And again, eventually you'll get more complicated and you say, hey, you know what, I could probably do this better in Pro Tools. And since Avid works really well with Pro Tools, you can kind of navigate or export out to Pro Tools and work inside of there and do some things. But those are some of the basic controls. And again, just as a final reminder, there is the clip level, etc., which can be controlled by going to clip, and there's the automation level. And there's some other things you can do here with the different controls of this pull down. You can adjust the volume. So if you said, hey, I don't want to go to everything to minus 14. I want to adjust everything so that it's now, instead of being minus 14, I want it to be minus 12. I set everything to be minus 14, but I was wrong. My boss wants everything set to minus 12. We could go here and say adjust pan volume on tracks globally. And by doing that, we could say boost everything, gain adjustments on everything, on all these tracks. We're going to go to 2. And so this plus 5 will go to plus 7. This minus 4 will go to minus 2. This plus 2.5 will go to plus 4.5. This, plus 3 will go to plus 5, etc. All these volumes will adjust according to what they are. And then boom, bam. It just made all those adjustments. And now it's all there. And so that is the thing we can do as well. So there's a bunch of controls in there. You can even create tone in here. So here in this peak hold menu, you can create tone media. Anyway, some different controls you have, some different things you can play with. This is some of the basics, but what you want to focus on first is making sure all your level is the same. Do you do that before you put in the timeline? Maybe. Do you do it after you put in the timeline? Sometimes you have to. Depends on what you're working on. But that's a little bit of how audio works inside of there. Take a look at it, explore it, play with it. Good luck.